add 3/4 plus 2/5 and simplify your answer if possible. Well, first thing we need to know is that in order to add two fractions, we need to have the same denominator in each fraction, or what's called common denominators. And in this case we have a 4 and a 5, and they're not the same. So we need to find the same or common denominator for the two fractions. So there's two different ways to do this. I'll show you both. The first method is to look at multiples, and in fact multiples of the denominator. We want to find the least common multiple. So the first denominator we have is 4, so we're going to look at multiples of 4. So we just count by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and so on. And my students often ask, well, how long do I have to go? And I say usually go 4, 5, or 6 multiples out before you stop, and then go on to your next multiple and then see if you find a match. So looking at multiples of 5, we'll count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and so on. And we notice that 20 shows up in both lists. And so 20 is a common multiple. And in fact, it's the least common multiple because it's the smallest number that appears in both lists. So what we have is our least common multiple, abbreviated LCM, which is also equal to our least common denominator, or LCD, is 20. So that's the number we're looking for. And in order to find now the sum of these two fractions, 3/4 plus 2/5, we want to take note that our common denominator is 20. Well, that means we need to find out what number do we multiply the denominator by in order to get 20. Well, 4 times 5 is 20. Let's change the color here so we can see this. 4 times 5 is 20. And so if we multiply the denominator by 20, or 5, we have to multiply the numerator by 5 in order to keep this equivalent fraction. Now, the 5, we need to figure out what number do we multiply by 5 in order to get our least common denominator of 20. Well, that's just 4. 5 times 4 is 20. So if we multiply this denominator by 4, we need to multiply the numerator also by 4. So, in simplifying, we have 3 times 5 is 15, over 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 times 4 is 8, over 5 times 4 is 20. So now we have the addition of two fractions whose denominators are the same. We have like denominators. And in our previous module we showed how to add such fractions with common denominators. What we're going to do is just add the numerators. 15 plus 8, and then we just keep the denominator, the common denominator, as our answer, the denominator for our answer. So 15 plus 8 is 23 over 20, and so that's our answer as an improper fraction. We could also write our answer as a mixed fraction, and using the following approach, 20 goes into 23 once with a remainder of 3, so we have 1 3/20. I prefer the improper fraction, but some teachers like 1 3/20, so the mixed fraction. Okay, now the following second solution, let's use a green again to match. Solution 2 is actually a little bit more popular with my students. They like this method, and it sort of stems from the following idea. If we have two fractions that we're adding, a over b plus c over d, then the way we can add them is using the following quick little shortcut. A times D goes up in the numerator, plus B times C over, and then we just multiply the denominators, B times D. And this formula helps us add two fractions with unlike denominators. You can actually use it for like denominators, but that's a lot of extra work. For just that, there's a simpler method. But if you have unlike denominators where B and D are different, this is a really nice quick formula for adding the two fractions. So let's take a look then and see how this works for our fractions. We have 3/4 plus 2/5, and our formula says that we multiply 3 times 5. It's like a crisscross multiply. 3 times 5 plus 4 times 2 over 4 times 5. And now we just do some simplification. Well, we have 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 2 is 8. Over 4 times 5 is 20. Now we have 15 plus 8 is 23. That should look familiar. Over 20. That's our answer as an improper fraction. And we could also have this written as a mixed fraction, 1 3/20. And you'll notice our answers match between the two different solutions or approaches. So you can pick the favorite, whichever one you like, or whichever one your teacher prefers. And I hope this helps answer some of your questions about adding two fractions with unlike denominators. The next tutorial will go over subtraction of fractions with unlike denominators.